everyone, going to do a little depth test on the Minelab Manticore coils. So the smallest from largest, the 9-inch, 11-inch and 15-inch. And we'll test them with a variety of targets. Not too many, just a small target, a medium-sized target and then a large target, just to see on what sort of depth they get. I must add, we'll only do the air test on them indoors. So that's going to impact the numbers, because if you do it out on the ground, obviously, that's going to reduce it. However, it will give us a good little ballpark of the distance and depth each different coil will get. And then we'll talk about some of the pros and cons at the end, if there's like big differences in the depth of certain targets. We'll record it all so you can see what it is and you can sort of form your own opinions from there. Then we all know they've all got their strengths and weaknesses, but I want to be able to like actually see it physically, and that's what we're going to do now on this. So yeah, hope you enjoy the video, guys. Okay, then let's do this. Ignore the daughter chirps in a while. That's our papoose. So like the first height we're going to do is this tiniest little hammer, same size as a thumbnail, literally as small as they get, these hammers. They were a legal tender brought from Venice, I believe. So yeah, they're tiny. So let's see what sort of depth this gets on the 9-inch coil. 7 inches, 18 centimeters. That's decent. Let me just quickly record that down, just so we can sort of track the data later on then. So yeah, please excuse the chirps in. I've tried to move in the best place I can with the lowest EMI. Got a sensitivity at 20, so it's a little bit reduced, but that should sort of balance you out then with the ground. So next then is a Queen Victoria Silver 1 shilling 1956. So this should have some punch on it. But the first one, the depth on the tiny hammer wasn't too bad at 7 inches. Let's see how this gets on then. Still getting it 8 inches there, so not too bad. Yeah, 8 inches and sort of 20.5 centimeters that cuts out then, the medium sized coin. Let's try the large big boy then. The 2 florins, Queen Vicky, massive, big chunky silver coin, as big as I get here. Really dense target. So let's start at 8. Still picking it just about there at 10 inches there. 10 inches and 26 centimeters. Good girl, Rosie. So what I'll do now, I'll quickly pause, I'll swap the coils around and then we'll go again. So we've got the medium sized stock coil, the 11-inch stock coil on, same sensitivity at 20. Yeah, and let's just go from smallest to largest objects, coins, and let's see how we go from there then. The tiny hammer then starting off with. Still just getting that at 8 inches there. 8 inches and 20.5 centimeters. So yeah, a good bit of depth, more than a 9-inch coil. That's to be expected. Let's go with the nice 1 shilling now. Just fading out there, so let's come back in. 9.5 inches, that's getting that from before it just fades out. And you're looking at just over 24 cms. So the next one then, the big bad boy, the nice Vicky 2 shillings there, the florins. Nice chunky coin, so we should get a good bit of depth out of this now. Starting off at 9, highest bid is 10, high bid at 11. Yeah, you could just winkle out 11 there and 28.5 cms. So a good bit of depth there on that air test, like I said earlier, but the sensitivity is down, like, so the sensitivity is down to 20, so we should get a little bit more depth out on the ground, but then you've got to counterbalance the ground mineralization, etc. So yeah, no, this is a good ballpark, this is. Let's see how we get on with the 15-inch coil next then. Let's break out the big guns then, the old 15-inch monster. Yeah, let's bang out the sensitivity, and that's the same as the others. So starting off with a tiny little hammer to start with. About 7 there, about 7 on that. 7, 18 centimetres. Less than the 11. But they don't cope quite as well with smaller targets. They really come to strength with the medium to large size targets at extreme depth. Well, let's have a look now. This is the medium size coin, the one shilling. Still picking that up. Eleven and a half, I would say. Just starts cutting out 11 and a half, 30 centimetres there for the medium sized coin. So loads of depth on that. So 13 inches. Sorry, no. Starts cutting out 11 inches there on the 15 for the medium sized coil. And yeah, just shy of 29 centimetres. So we'll cut round that up to 29. So then the large coin last, this is where I should really come to strength now. Rosie, still going. Just cutting out there 13. Yeah, 13 is sort of cuts out 13 and 34 centimetres. Cool, so yeah, what I'll do, I'll just like have a look at that, the numbers and stats and stuff. It's pretty much what I thought it'd be. I thought we'd have more depth from the small coil, but like I said, it is indoors, the sensitivity is down to 20, but still, like, it is a really good ballpark estimation for sure. So yeah, I'll do a little close down once I've had a look at the stats now, guys. Hello everyone, you've got to be proper nerding out here now with my glasses on. So anyway, we'll go through the numbers and then I'll talk about my sort of spin on it, my sort of take on it at the end. So hammered, small, tiny little hammered, then the stats for that. The 11-inch coil came in first with 8 inches depth on that with the air test. And then second was joints with a 15-inch and a 9-inch coil. The reason for that is the large coils aren't quite as sensitive to the smaller targets. The medium silver coin then first, 15-inch coil came in at 11 inches. And then second, the 11-inch coil came in at 9.5 inches. And then third, the 9-inch coil came in at 8 inches. So still some pretty decent depth for the small coil there. And then the large silver coin and the stats for that then and positions. First was the 15-inch coil. At 13 inches, so really good depth. You'll get deeper than that, I'm telling you. If you turn that sensitivity to that little sweet spot to 25, 26, as long as it's not chirping too much out on the ground, you'll get some serious depth out of that. And then second was the 11-inch coil at 11 inches, and then third was the 9-inch coil at 10 inches. So the conclusion for myself then is, what are you going to put on for what type of event? Well, it's all down to the ground and how you want to sort of treat that. So the sweet spot would always be to turn up to a rally with a medium inch coil, and if it's trashy, you can flick your 9-inch coil on. But recently I've been sort of really favouring the 9-inch coil because it's just so good at separation. And it stops me racing away as well, because you've got your swing, the gaps in between your swings has got to be quite narrow because that extra couple of inches on the coil. So there is no right or wrong answer. But for me, I would definitely go with a 9-inch coil first, even though I'm going to be losing that little bit of depth. And then once that sort of ground gets cleared, I'm happy. Like there's lots of the targets being picked away, especially on perms. Then like whack your 11-inch coil on, and then clear it through again with the 11-inch coil. And then once you think the ground's clear with the 9-inch and the 11-inch, then break out the big bad boy. Then get the 15-inch coil on in case there's any like deep bigger targets down, but that 11-inch coil just ain't quite getting them. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. Because you know, it's like you've got that thing in your head, or if it's too trashy, I'll quickly put my 9-inch coil on. I'll swap my 11-inch for my 9-inch coil on the rallies. But it doesn't always work out that way because you've got to walk a mile or something, or half a mile, or whatever the distance is to your car. Go and swap them around if you can't be bothered carrying your day sack. But yeah, definitely the sweet spots, the sort of 11-inch coil, 9-inch coil, and then if you've got really clean pasture land, like by all means, bang on the 15-inch coil. A lot of people don't get on with a 15-inch coil purely because it's a little bit more tricky to isolate, to pinpoint the target. It is more difficult because obviously the area is a lot bigger. 15 inches about that, 9 inches about that. So it's obviously really easy to pinpoint targets. You don't even need to use a pinpoint function with the 9-inch coil. So they've all got their pros and cons. It's playing around with it and learning what's best for you. When I first started detecting, I was always like, whack the biggest coil on, most depth, that's all that matters. Nah, actually, it's not. Because if you spend all day trying to dig a massive hole and pinpoint it, and the separation's poor, so it's harder to isolate the target, then you're losing time. You're losing time, you're losing target. So you've got to get that like balance between the depth and the separation. And I'm telling you, you get some absolutely banging depth with that 9-inch coil. I was out on a permission the other day, and I had a tiny little spindle wheel down to about 14 inches. So it has got some serious depth, especially on wet soil. If it's been raining for a few days, that sort of rain sort of magnifies the sort of EMI. So the signal gets pushed down and it just bounces back up quicker once it hits that target. So yeah, that's just my spin on it. I know you're all going to do your own different things, and that's cool. That's fine. But I would say have them if you can get them, because it's brilliant to have them all in your back pocket. Because different grounds will need a different coil for different techniques. They've all got their pros and cons. As previously mentioned, for example, the 15-inch coil is brilliant at picking large, deep targets up. However, it's exactly the same depth as per the depth test there. For tiny little targets, it was picking up the hammer at the same depth as a 9-inch coil. So they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. The medium grounds, the 11th has got good depth, it's got good separation. However, the 9-inch for me has still got decent depth and the separation's outstanding. So not really a sales pitch, because I've got a sales code for Crawford's. I don't get commission from them. I just get to try out new gear and do events and stuff. So, but yeah, you could use my 10% code on the 9-inch or the 15-inch coil. That's massive, 10% off a couple of £100 coil or however much they are. They're not cheap. But they're definitely worth it to enhance your experience with a Minelab Manticore. Yeah, use my Artifact 10 on Crawford's website if you wanted to get one. But yeah, any feedback, like if you've got different ways of doing things, settings wise, it's all on my settings tutorials beforehand, but I just pretty much use the default settings on All Terrain General, open up my iron bias by 1, so it's a little bit more open and more likely to pick up targets. But I've really learned now that center line on that 2D bar, if it's a little bit off that, it's generally like quite a poor target. It's not a good target. It's bang on that center line, you're going to be in with a good chance of a coin. But you also get your artifacts, which might be a little bit off the line. So if it's not rusty and it's not blurting, then dig them out. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm starting to waffle on a little bit. Nerd mode deactivated. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. The proof's in the pudding. What I'm going to try and do when I get a bit more time later on in the future is like do some flower beds and test beds and stuff, and then wait until the conditions are good and try and run those sort of tests out on the ground as well. But the air test, it will tell you, it does it says what it does on the can effectively. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please like and subscribe. It really does help my channel out. Thanks for your time, guys.